Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala sayyidina wa nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Firstly, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. One-off subject that we're doing today is about the situation that we have across the world, and also in particular in Bangladesh at this moment. Situation is not very good. I'm sure most of you are aware of it, but it's not just about Bangladesh that I want to address. It's about the situation across the world. And what I feel is that a lot of people, they kind of find when things go awfully bad, they look for a face or a few faces, and they will target their anger to those few faces, those few individuals, or that one face who's in charge. And what happens is that I think people seriously, are not clued up if they do that. Because the Quran has taught us not to do that. The Quran has taught us about, looking at a situation, understanding it from a multifaceted point, and then being able to work from different angles. So for example, if you look in Makkah al-Mukarramah, when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam started his mission, he had a lot of challenges, he had a lot of enemies. Now, if you look in the Quran, not a single enemy's name is mentioned. That's something that should strike you straight away. Of all his enemies, like Abu Jahl's name is not mentioned. Only Abu Lahab you've got, okay? So you've got Abu Lahab. But that surah that's come down, that's to show a miracle. That Allah Azza wa Jalla has said that he's not going to believe, and he didn't believe. But apart from that, most of the other enemies that you've got, they haven't been mentioned by name. And Allah doesn't go by names. Why? Because, with the enemies of the Prophet ﷺ, why? Because it's not just these individuals, but it's the actions that they're doing. And there are hundreds of them that will come later who will be the same as them. It's the action. And there are tens of them in their time that they were doing the same thing, insulting the Prophet ﷺ, and attacking the deen, attacking the Muslims, trying to torture the Muslims in Makkah and fighting against them, and so on and so forth. So it's not about the face today and a few faces, it's about the actual evil behind it. Because if your heart is corrupted, it doesn't matter about your face. It doesn't matter how you look, who you are. And once hearts are corrupted, then you will get corruption appearing on the earth. Once a heart is rectified, you will get rectification, you will get good actions on the earth. When you look at Musa alayhi salam, yes, he had three great enemies, and all three of them are mentioned by name. Okay, so here Allah is saying the name. But again, what the ulama of tafsir have said is that لِكُلِّ Musa Fir'aun, that every Moses will have a Pharaoh. There's a very important point here, is that the Quran, when it spoke about Musa alayhi salam and about Fir'aun, it didn't just tell us about a story that happened 4,000 years back, about Musa or Moses and Pharaoh. It told us the nature of evil tyrants. It told us about how and the nature of true men like Musa alayhi salam. And it told us about how each of the political situation continued. Now I haven't got time right now to go into the politics of Musa and Fir'aun. But I will do inshallah in the series that we're starting now, in the series of the Anbiya, inshallah, week by week we'll be covering. And when we get to Musa, you'll see how much politics the Quran has got covered. It's amazing how deeply the Quran talks about politics, talks about psychology and so on. But this is not the time for it. Today we want to talk about the situation across the world. And for that, what I want to say is that, the leaders that are in the world, like Fir'aun was a man who was leading. Now you're going to say that Fir'aun was the worst enemy of Musa alayhi salam, and he was the cause of all his problems. But Allah doesn't say that. Allah says, yes, he was one of the causes. But Allah says, وَقَالَ الْمَلَأُ مِنْ قَوْمِ فِرْعَوْنَ, that there was a council behind Fir'aun. There's a whole shura, there's a council, there's a cabinet. And Allah talks a lot about this cabinet. And this cabinet, the influence of this cabinet appears more than the influence of Fir'aun and his strategic plans against Musa alayhi salatu salam. So to give you one of the references of that, you can read a lot about this. And inshallah, when we get to that in our, when we cover the seerah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the story about Musa alayhi salatu salam, we will get to that. But as a quick reference, you can just look at the 9th juz. This is Surah Al-A'raf, which is the 7th surah of the Holy Quran. And you look at ayah number 109 or ayah number 127, and you will find the influence of the council on Fir'aun. So what Allah is saying is that there's a larger party that has has an influence on the tyrant himself. So the tyrant, yes, he's a problem, but he's got a cabinet of about 9 people, whoever, however many people, and they have an influence. If you look at the story of Thamud, the story of Salih alayhi salam and Thamud, you will see Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, وَكَانَ فِي قَوْمِ تِسْعَةُ رَهْطٍ يُفْسِدُونَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Allah Azza wa Jalla again said there were 9, barons who were, evil people who were influencing the entire nation. So there's 9, and Allah didn't mention their name, but He said there are 9 people in the background who are influencing whatever was going on in the time of Salih alayhi salam. So what I want to say to you is that you might look at a country's government and the president or the prime minister, and you might think, well, that's the person that's making this, and that's not true. That person is the mouth of these people, but the real brains of this person is a whole group of people. And you've got to understand that the root of the problem is much deeper than just targeting this one face. Because when that one person, whoever this government leader is, when he or she is replaced by another person. See, what happens with most people, I've seen this, every 4 years we have election, right? Or every 4 years in America, or every 5 years here, or wherever, we have elections. And then what happens is that, people say, oh yeah, this is the new leader, yeah, he's giving new promises, yeah, he's gonna make a big change, yeah, let's vote for him, and whatever, and then they do that, and then this guy, they're fed up of the previous guy, they're fed up of him, and they know that he's an evil, this, that, blah, 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 blah. And when he leaves, they're saying, Alhamdulillah, mashallah, we've got a new leader now, he'll bring new promises. And this guy slowly becomes no different to the last guy. So all it is, it's a facelift. That's all it is. It's a facelift. So it's the same body with a new face. Same body with a new head. And if you look at these rulers in many of these countries, I'm not saying all of the countries, but many of these countries, whichever president or prime minister comes in, and I want you to pay attention to the way they come in as well. Because, this is not from me, this is from a white American, right? Michael Moore, if you read his book, Stupid White Men. I don't know if you've ever come across that book. There's a book you can buy by Michael Moore. It's called Stupid White Men. Now this is an American guy who's writing this. It's not me, so please don't hang me, right? Like you want to hang every other Maulvi and Mullah you find, right? This is him writing this, and what he wrote is, and I read this book from cover to cover when I got hold of it, and this was in 2001. He's written this book in 2001 when Bush first came into power. And what he wrote clearly was that he followed, Al Gore, who was against Bush. Michael Moore was with Al Gore and his party to try and get, Al Gore into power, and in the end Bush comes into power. But the crucial thing that this person writes is the amount of cunning tactics, and these are against the American people, against their system. And this is the top man, the president of the top democratic country in the world, the number one democratic country in the world, America. I did that because some of my brothers across the world, they say, America, So this is the top American, the democratic country with with its president. And what they've done is, they've rigged the polls. And he's given proof in there. He's provided proof of how they rigged the polls. In fact, what happened is that Bush wasn't going to win the election. So what did they do? They went into, and Allahu Alam, I don't know, but this man. Now the thing is, if this man is lying, if this Michael Moore is lying, then one simple thing is, the American state or the government should have put him to trial. Yes or no, tell me. He said that they've lied to get into power. He said they've rigged the polls to get... Now this is not a small allegation he's making against them. This is a massive allegation. And guess what? The man has not been challenged once. In now what? 12, 13 years. He's not been challenged once. Not even a trial, not even being called into a court district, or even, a case against him, not even imprisonment, nothing. He's even written a second book after that. After the first one that he wrote. Now what did he say? He said that Bush wasn't going to win the war, or win the elections. So they went into certain states and they switched the buttons around, green to vote and red not to vote. So you basically have to punch the green if you're voting for this person and red not to vote. But they switched the colors around. So people who wanted to vote for Al Gore were actually voting for Bush. And they didn't know it. Right? And however he proves this, you go and look at his book. All right? Then they were still not going to win it. So what did he do? He told the American, the armies and navies that were outside of the country, they told them to start voting. Now, according to American law, they're not supposed to vote because they're outside as servicemen. Now, this is all in his book. You read that. But then they gave them permission to vote. So, who they're going to vote for? They're going to vote for Bush. He still wasn't going to win. He was low in numbers. So what did they do? Bush's cousin is running Fox News. So what happened is they're still counting in Florida. They're still counting. This is 2001. They're still counting in Florida. Yep. And as they're still counting, their television, Fox News, says that Bush has won the elections. Now they're having they're going mad inside there. How did this guy win when we're still counting in Florida? So, how did that happen? Well, a day before the announcement was supposed to be made, Fox News just made the announcement. And America started to celebrate. Now this is documented stuff, guys. This is not stuff I'm making up, right? Then the next day comes, if you remember, there was a bit of a court thing where Florida put up a fuss and they said, how did they, count it? How did they count it if we haven't counted our votes and all that? In the end, what happened? Everything got mucked in the muddied in the waters. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. This is not even the High Court, Supreme Court, nothing, no one did anything. Why? Because it was written according to those, that Mala'u Fir'aun, what I said, that cabinet, there's a people behind these faces who have decided that this is the man that we need. And when they say this is the man that we need, that is the man they're going to get. By hook or by crook, that's the man they're going to get. Now he stayed in office for 2 terms, for 8 years. He stayed in. Now why I'm highlighting this to you is, if you remember, America, like everyone says that, America's got the system, this, and then this country, England's got the system and so on. If they can do this in America, and if the American, someone like Michael Moore, who's a white man and is talking against it, and no one's listening, not even anything has happened after he's spoken about this, right? If this can happen in America, what do you think Bangladesh is doing? Do you think Bangladesh is saying, oh, you vote here, yes, I will make sure I will leave my position, I will not come to power tomorrow. You think they're doing that? This last time, when this last government came into power in Bangladesh, it was unheard of. It was unheard of in the history of Bangladesh that not a single person with a beard or a hat, or Molvi or Maulana or Sheikh or someone who's religious, not a single one of those got into power. It's unheard of. Imagine this is a Muslim country, and of course they've got leaders who are, who've got beards, who are, religious and so on. And every election that has happened, a few of them get into parliament. This is known in Bangladesh. Every few, they try to do the best for their people, whoever they are, whatever party they are. This last time they had a vote in areas where it was clear that this person who's a Maulana, supposed to get into power, he never got power. How? People don't know. Where the whole area is supporting him. You've got like more than 80-90% of his supporters. And none of them got in power. And Bangladesh should have woken up then. What is going on? Because now I'm not saying that, they definitely have rigged the polls, but there's a real serious question mark here. There's a serious question mark about what is going on. Now I'm not just talking about Bangladesh, guys. Every single country around the world. Your Bashar Assad in Syria, and your Saddam before that, and your Gaddafi and whoever else you've got, right? These are chosen people, my friends. You know, whatever, however and whenever they have all these elections, even now they have an election now. If they have an election, and imagine people who are serious about their deen, which means that, when I say serious, I mean, I'm not talking about blowing things up, and I'm not talking about terrorizing people, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about practicing people who want to worship Allah, who don't want to, you know, do anything corrupted, who want to just be normal in their daily lives. If a whole group of these people get into power, I can guarantee you that tomorrow there's going to be a massive allegation about them, that and the simple thing you just say is, oh, we found a link to Al-Qaeda. And because they've got a link to Al-Qaeda, that's why this is a terrorist organization and we have to take them down. You know what I'm saying, like Joe? That's all it is. So if you find any religious people that come into power, it's happened. It's happened before, like in Algeria, right? They didn't let them stay in power. In Palestine, now in Palestine, they were democratically elected. This was by democracy. This is by their own system. By democracy they were elected. But they said straight away, it's a terrorist organization. Hamas is a terrorist organization. So you just don't let them stay in power. In Somalia, in Sudan, the same case repeated again. As soon as you get these people coming in, well, no, we don't want them. Why? Who is this saying you don't want it? Because democracy is supposed to be the rule of the people, by the people, right? For the people. If that's democracy, that means according to democracy, this is what's supposed to happen, right? According to democracy, if you have, okay, fair enough, if you have a whole group of, you know, people who are just normal, you know, like whatever these parties, right, and they gain power, fine, you get in power. But if it's supposed to be some Islamic-minded people, they should get in power. If you've got Jewish people, they should just get in power. If it's Christian, should get in power. But what happens here is that there seems to be an agenda behind that certain people can't get into power because it becomes a threat to these secret councils that are running, you know, these countries. It becomes a threat to them. And they can't stay in power. I mean, you tell me this, right? According to democracy, and this is the whole fallacy of the thing, I want you to think about this. If a whole group of pedophiles went to one part of the world, let's say they went to an island, and they declared that this is pedophile island, right? Just imagine, they said that this is our island, and this is us, and this is who we are, and this is how we were born, this is how our minds think, and this is who we want to be. According to their system, those pedophiles, in whichever island they want, whichever country they want, if they make the majority, and if they make their votes, and if one of them gets elected, then he should, by their democratic law, he should be elected, and he should be in power, and he should become the president. But you know what? The whole world would not accept that, right? The whole world would not accept that. But hang on a minute. Why is it now that you're not going to accept that when you haven't even questioned your system? The system is the thing that you need to re-examine. I'm not saying democracy is flawed. I'm not saying that. But there are serious questions about this democracy, because in democratic countries, you know, I read a whole book about, I don't know if you guys, the problem with us lot is that we don't read much. You just seem to just look at the news. And if you just look at the news, you know, it doesn't matter what's coming out of that TV and what's coming out through many of these internet, you know, channels. They're all orchestrated. Most of them are orchestrated by the same people. So they're making you think what they want you to think. So if I tell you right now, there's a book called Don't Think About the Pink Elephant. Don't think about the pink elephant. What's in your mind? Tell me, go on, tell me what's in your mind. What's in your mind, go on? Pink elephant, exactly. Do you understand? The whole book's name, Don't Think About the Pink Elephant. And what are you thinking about? A pink elephant. That's the first thing that comes in your mind. Why? Because there are many ways of getting you to know and believe and think what they want you to, but what you don't want to. But again, it's all reverse. It's all reverse, and they've done it without you thinking. So what I want to say to you is that if you read books, it's far better to understand what's going on than to look at what these screens are showing us. And like some of these are, you know, like whether it was biased or not biased, Press TV has been taken off. Why has Press TV been taken off? I mean, come on. If you want to tell them to be less biased, whatever, have a word with them, whatever, but to completely ban them from you know, satelliting or having an air of this, there's a question mark again. What is going on? There's a book I came across about democracy. And that book had about 10 different theories against democracy. And one of the things was that if you look at democratic countries, there are more democratic countries than other countries. So the question is, how democratic are you? There's a serious whole debate about how democratic can you be, because what is it that makes you democratic? But what I want to say to you is that in Bangladesh and many of these countries, when they got into power, the whole question is, were they seriously elected? This is one big question. I'm not saying they weren't, but there is a big question mark about the process of it. Second thing is, when they are elected, any of these governments, what happens is that they get into a cabinet and they get into a parliament, and it's this close-knit circle of people who decide what's going to happen to the country. Even though on certain issues the whole country would not want it to happen. For example, tell me this here, which middle-class individual in the whole of this Western Hemisphere wanted the bank crisis? You know the recession that we're in, the double recession that we're hitting in right now, and we're trying to crawl out of, yeah? Tell me which low class, middle class, upper class, whoever, is a decent person would want to, the whole riba system, and you can read this, what the banks did in America, and it was like a domino effect across the whole of the world. The whole world went into recession because of a few big banks, Morgan and, some of these, great sort of banks across in America, which sound mind would say that they wanted this whole bank, this crisis to start. And who's backing that up? It's these governments. These governments knew that these banks are creating a bubble. And that bubble is getting, they're lending and they're borrowing to such extremes that soon the bubble's going to burst. And they knew it. I watched documentaries where it was clear by authorities that they spoke, from the American cabinet, they spoke out. There's a woman who spoke out against this, and it's all on YouTube, you can find it, right? Spoke out against this 5 years before the crisis, that do something about it. What did the government do? The government, again, put the sheet over the wool over their eyes, and in the end, just let it go on, because then they're benefiting from it as well. And since they're benefiting, they don't care. They're getting money from the banks are providing them. And then when the banks pulled everyone down, right? Tell me this here, what kind of justice is this? That the government who suffered as a result of these banks is the same government that comes and bails the banks out. How does that make sense? Your banks, these big chiefs and big cats inside these corporations, they took your country down. They put your country into recession. They put the world into recession. So now, this government of this country, and of America, and of other countries, they are the first ones to say that we're going to bail out these banks. And the Royal Bank of Scotland, or this other bank that's going NatWest, or whoever it is that's going to go bust, alright? They will say, what, we're going to give them some funds to stay alive. Right? I mean, what is going on? Again, there's a big question mark. I'm not saying, you come to a clear conclusion, but there's serious question marks. And what I'm saying to you is, in Bangladesh or in all these other countries, there's a greater network. When Allah mentioned Musa alayhi salam, He mentioned Fir'aun, but He mentioned who? He mentioned Qarun. There's a reason why Qarun's name is there twice or 3 times in the Quran. Why? Because Qarun was the greatest financial backing for Fir'aun. Fir'aun was the politician. He was the political man. Qarun was his financer. He had the monies. He had so many keys to his treasure boxes and to his, to his, the amount of monies that he saved, is that you needed, he needed, sometimes, you have a guy coming out and he's got some bodyguards, yes? Sometimes you have some bodyguards come out, yeah? So the guy might have like 10 or 8 bodyguards. Qarun had, apart from any bodyguards he might have had, Qarun had given full employment to a group of about 10 individuals who were very strong, right? They were very muscular and strong. A group of 10 people, approximately. He gave them full employment. You know what the employment was? Full time. Was to just carry his keys. That's how many keys he had. He had so many keys. 10 men always had to carry his keys. You want to read about this? Then look in the Quran in Surah Qasas, the 28th Surah, and look at ayah number 76. You'll find the tafsir there. Now he was the financial backing to Fir'aun. But there's a third individual Allah mentions, who's Haman. Now Haman was the mason. Haman was the mason. And he was the person into making these wonderful buildings. Right? So he was the architect, the person who was on the land, who was making these buildings and monuments, who was making again an awful amount of money, but also was able to fashion these wonderful buildings and high towers, from which Fir'aun stood, and he controlled Misr, he controlled Egypt. So now there's a three sort of way thing. There's the politician, there's the finance man, or the person who's the economic person, or the economic part, and then you've got the architect, or you've got the mason, the builder. And it's not just a normal builder here, we're talking about a huge commerce that he's got ongoing in Egypt. And perhaps many of these pyramids were behind Haman. Allahu Alam, but perhaps some of these monuments were behind Haman. Now in the world, you've got all these three. Any government needs these three parts. Especially these governments that are ruling. They need to be in power, and they need to be in the political face. You need a person. You've got obviously the cabinet behind it, and then you've got the financial backing that you must have, and then you've got the other one. Now, I want to tell you one thing. You know this Bank of England, right? Can I give you a question? Just normal. Who owns the Bank of England? You know, the Bank of England. Who owns the Bank of England? Go on, tell me. Any of you? Who? The government, yeah? Yeah? Wrong. No. You go research it. The government doesn't own. You think about this. Hang on a minute, what? Are you telling me Bank of England and England doesn't own the Bank of England? What are you talking about? How can England not own Bank of England? How can the government not own Bank of England? How can the people of England not own the Bank of England? No, they don't. Huh? You know, when I first said this, I thought, what? The Bank of America. Who owns the Bank of America? You think it's America? You think it's the government of America? No. How then did America borrow $700 billion from the American bank, the Bank of America, or the Federal Reserve, right? $700 billion recently they borrowed to try and get themselves out. I mean, obviously it's all, it's all a big game anyway, but the fact is, why would a government borrow from its own pocket? Guys, are you listening, yeah? How can you borrow from your own pocket? The fact is that all these countries that have got a bank of, like Bank of America, you've got Bank of England, you've got Bank of something else, they're all owned by this one family. It's a Rothschild family. The Rothschild family across the globe, they own all these banks. You can search this, and you will find, what I'm saying is not true, because I actually went myself and started to search this stuff, and I found, yes, they are the owners of this. So, when I said to you, Qarun, I'm telling you that there's a big financial backing to many of these countries. And tell me this, when you've got, and I'm sure a lot of you into Freemasonry or whatever, I'm not saying that, look, they are, controlling the world or whatever. I don't like this conspiracy thing that gets up people's nostrils and goes so bad, right, that it's giving you a headache, alright? There might, you've got to put meat to the bone when it comes to this. And there is a definite, like I said, there's a council behind Fir'aun, so they were making their rulings behind Fir'aun, and Fir'aun was being influenced by them. So I'm not going to deny the fact that there is some secret individuals behind all these governments that are orchestrating the governments. I'm not going to deny that. But who they actually are, whether the Illuminati, whether the Freemason, whoever else they are, or parts of these organizations, you can't tell, I can't tell, and we'll never be able to tell, because it's supposed to be a secret organization. And the point of being a secret organization is that you'll never know the truth. But we can at least make a common denominator, which is, there's definitely a backing and an influential people behind many of these governments. Alright? And when you take these three things in consideration, now you go to Bangladesh, you're going to see that whoever's in power at this moment is just the face of what's going on. There's a whole there's groups of people that are giving backings. And I'm telling you today that what is happening in Bangladesh today, you have innocent people being killed who want to protest. That's all it is. They want to protest against what the government has decided. It is obviously, it's a big question mark in a way. The international amnesty, and the world is, looking on, but no one's talking about it. The media is quiet. When this happens, when the media goes quiet, because 80% of the media is almost orchestrated or run by one particular family. And I'm talking about world media here, or a couple of few individuals. That's all it is, right? And if you seriously don't know that, then you've got to seriously wake up and find out who's controlling the media. And they will show in the media what is important to whoever they feel is important. It might be more important for you to know that in South Wimbledon today, in one of the streets, in one particular house, there was an old lady whose name is Granny Smith, and her cat got stuck on her tree in the back of her garden, and the firemen had come down, and they took her cat down, and they made Granny Smith smile. That's more important for you to know than 35 people getting killed and shot in some part of the world and they're dying. Do you understand? If you haven't woke up to see what they're feeding you and what they're telling you to know, then seriously, we're blind. We're blind to what is going on. Now, I'm not saying that everyone is corrupt out there. Please don't go to that extreme, because otherwise you're not going to be able to sleep. Not everyone is corrupt. There's a lot of good people also in many of these governments. I have to say this, because even Allah Azza wa Jalla has said in the Quran, when He mentioned Fir'aun, He said that amongst Fir'aun's cabinet, close people, his family, there was a man who stood up and who was still talking good. So please don't paint them all in one brush. Right? So Allah says that in Surah Qasas, Surah number 28, number 20, Surah Qasas, Surah 28, Surah number 40 and ayah number 28, Surah Mu'min. Surah Mu'min, ayah number 28, you will find, وَقَالَ رَجُلٌ مُؤْمِنٌ, Allah said, a believing man in the family of Fir'aun stood up and he said these good things, and you can read the chapter in there and see what good things they're saying. So I'm not saying they're all corrupted, please. Don't be these, I want to call them foolish Muslims. They either love you to bits or they hate you to bits. Don't be one of these Muslims. Understand that there can be different colors and different shades. Now, in Bangladesh, the problem is a lot more greater than what you see. And it's not just Bangladesh I want to talk about here. When I tell you these problems, I want you to reflect on every single country, you're going to find the same problems. Their main target is not these people who are coming to protest, or this legislation that they've made. No. Their problem is a lot deeper. Their thing is that democracy in the world today is liberal democracy. It's not democracy, it's liberal democracy. And you've got to understand where this is coming from. Because democracy could be anything. Democracy could have been, like I said, if a group of pedophiles were to get in Ireland, they should have got into power and told the world that, yeah, we have the right to become pedophiles. But the world's not going to accept that. If a group of, let's say, gunmen who are terrorists and who are real terrorists, and they get into any part of the world, and they themselves, they feel they're alright, they're pirates or whoever they are, they elect themselves, the whole world's going to say, no, we can't have that. That's fine. But the same thing is, what about the opposite side? Both extremes, like the pedophiles have gone to one side, and the terrorists and the others have gone right wing. So this is right wing, this is left wing, right? Who draws the line in between? Who tells you who are the middle path people? Right? Now let's get back to the situation. Their problem is not what they're doing. Their problem is that you've got to, if you want to become one of these leaders, and I'm telling you this, please go and check through these. I'm not going to give you names of governments and organizations, but I want to tell you this. If you don't dine with them, and if you don't drink wine with them, you're not going to get into power. Clear as that. If you don't dine with them, and if you don't drink wine with them, you're not going to get into power. I've got my own, I've got a close friend of mine who's in Enfield, who years back, right, I want to tell you this, and you, I don't know, you might say astaghfirullah sitting here in the masjid, but I want to tell you this happened 20 years back. This is not today. 20 years back, he was into organizing football teams, right, football leagues. And he organized them for the Arab, he got big. He started with small leagues, and then he got big, until he started to do countries. So he started to make, arrange matches between countries and countries. So he eventually made an Arab sort of, league kind of thing, where the Arabs were playing with one another, and it went to, there's a big match. So there's like 32 different, there's about 16 different countries that are playing with one another, and he made a massive league, and this is all happening in Arabia. So who got into the finals? In the finals got, I think it was Egypt and Saudi Arabia. Egypt and Saudi Arabia got in the finals. Now, he's arranging all of this. Most of his costs are taken up in the initial part of everything he's doing. The final match whatever comes out of the final match, whatever comes from those tickets is his profit. Everything else is his cost to cover the thing, right? So this is 20 years back, I'm telling you, yeah? So he gets invited by these Saudi royals to go into the palace of the Saudi kingdom and to go and celebrate with them the fact that Saudi Arabia is going to be playing in the finals of this Arab League. So he goes there. And when he goes there, what happens is that they offer him wine. They offer him wine. This is Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia. Right? So they give him wine. Now, he's a Pakistani friend of mine, and he looks at this and is gutted. You know, there's non-Muslims there who are drinking as well, and there's some Muslims who are drinking, and these princes are drinking as well. And he's offered it, and he refused. He said, I'm a Muslim. Now, by saying he's a Muslim, he insulted them. Allahu Akbar. Yeah? He insulted these guys. They're thinking, you telling us you're Muslim? We're Muslim as well, like, you know, it's alright to drink a little bit. Now, he didn't drink, but he was appalled at the fact that he is in the most holiest part of the world, whether this was in Jeddah or Riyadh, wherever it was, right? He's one of the holiest parts of the world, where these people are the custodians of the Kaaba and custodians of the two holy mosques. And they're offering him wine in their palace to drink. Right? So anyway, whatever that happened, he came out there not drinking, and you know, they weren't too happy with him. Anyway, they said that the match, when it's going to be played, they announced that the king himself is going to come. I think it was Fahad at that time. He's going to come himself and he's going to watch the match. Wow. You know, this was like big news. You know, most of the Saudis were going to fill the stadium up because the king is there, right? And on top of that, put the icing on the cake, the king announces that he is going to pay for all the tickets. Subhanallah. He's going to pay for all the tickets, right? So that's great. So the king's coming himself, and all the spectators, all the Saudis get free tickets. So you can imagine the whole stadium is ram-packed with Saudis watching this. And what happens in the end is Saudi Arabia loses the match. What happened after that? Well, the king walked out, and the king, you know, just went out, wasn't very happy. He's, you know, whoever came with him, the officials came with him, they went out as well, they weren't very happy, the Saudis weren't very happy, whatever. And then my friend went up to them, you know, and said, you know, well, the king said he's going to pay for all the tickets, so I want my money for the tickets. And they said to him, what you talk about tickets? What are you talking about tickets? No. King said, no pay. No pay, no pay. He was told that the king's not going to pay. The king's not having a good mood, he's not in a good mood, the king's not going to pay. So my friend, you know, he was like chasing them, saying, no, king say, no pay, finish. You're not going to get no pay, right? So he went to the British embassy, because he's a British national. He went to the British embassy, and he went to the consulate, and he told him, he said, look, this is what's happened to me. This is millions of pounds. This is not small money here. Millions of pounds. This is all his profits. Everything he's going to make is in this game. And the consulate told him, he says, listen, mate, listen, Gav, you got done in, mate. The king just done you in, you know what I'm saying? Now, get back on your back and go. It's best in your interest to get out of here. Right? So, he had to leave. And this is my friend who's very close to me, lives in Enfield, who's told me about this. You know, I'm not going to give you his name, but he's going, you just listen to, you think, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. You know, out of all the things that you hear, you wouldn't expect them to be dining and whining in those things. La ilaha illallah. You don't know what some of these guys are doing. King Fahd built, alright, this is in his time, he built a boat that was a streamliner that was special for him, and there's pictures of this you will find, I think you might find it across the internet. This was a special cruiser just for him, he built it for himself. This is in the 80s he built it. Where he had a button in a swimming pool, he had a button next to him, if you press this button, right, the whole swimming pool, the water would get sucked out, and all the tiles would turn over, and this swimming pool would turn into a dance ballroom with lights, disco lights going on. And this private cruiser cost him to build in the 80s $75 million. $75 million. Right? And you think that this is a small thing? What I'm trying to say to you is that these governments have got a lot behind that going on that you need to search. Now the crisis of Bangladesh or any of these countries doesn't stop at these things. They will not be able to flash their lives and do what they want if honest Muslim, practicing Muslims are on the face of the earth. You know, genuine, good, honest, practicing Muslims. Because what will a practicing Muslim say? A practicing Muslim says, don't waste your money. A practicing Muslim says, don't show pride. A practicing Muslim says, don't you go against, what Allah has ordered in the Quran. And what's in the Quran? What's wrong in the Quran? See, the Quran is telling you to be good. The Quran is telling you to be honest. The Quran is telling you, don't cheat one another. What do these governments do? Right? What do the government? All these governments have done this, right? In the West. Right? They've gone into these countries, even today, you think about the crisis of Africa. Today we're there, we're trying to make aid for Africa, right? And we're trying to kill ourselves to try and raise 20 million pounds for Africa, whenever these big aids go along, right? Or 1 million, 2 million for Africa, and they're poor people. How did these people become poor? These countries that have made their monies went into Africa and the likes of Africa, and they robbed Africa of his riches. They robbed it of his minerals. They robbed it of his diamonds. They robbed it of his gold. They robbed it from the things that were underneath the ground. Right? They brought it back, and they went into countries and they said, your bananas that you're selling, this is stuff that you can go and find out. Right? Yourselves. Bananas that you're selling, instead of you selling it for 10 pesos in here, I'm going to give you 20 pesos for your bananas, which is nothing to me. It's like 20p for all these bunch of bananas. I'm going to take it back to my country, and I'm going to sell it for like £1.50, £2 for the same thing that I paid for 20 pence. Right? So he's going to make double the money, he gives it to me. I monopolize the entire bananas. So their own people who grow the bananas, who live there, whom Allah had given the bananas to, whom Allah had said, for you I have grown these bananas on this part of the earth so that you can live off these bananas. Those same poor people now can't taste the bananas. This is real stuff I'm talking about going all across the world. Same thing happened in Bangladesh with the fish. The poor people can't eat fish there. And rich people like us in these countries, we've got all the fish that they should have had in our fridges here. And half of them are going off in the fridge, in freezers all across these bazaar shops that you've got. They've all come to us. Same thing in Pakistan, same thing in all these countries. These rich people are coming in, monopolizing the market, bringing them back and making them. But then, the leftovers? Imagine they've got leftovers, they sell them back to the country. I mean, you think, what kind of, Allah Azza wa Jalla has made this, clearly forbidden, that you deprive a people from his own food and you take it from them, you monopolize it first, then you go and resell it to them that was theirs in the first place. So, and let's say you were a good farmer. Let's say you stand up in Pakistan or in Bangladesh, you stand up and say, no way, I'm going to allow this. You know what they'll do? They'll go to all my neighboring farmers and they'll buy them out, and then they'll kill me off. They'll kill my whole trade off. So I've got to play with them. If I don't play with them, I've lost. I'll lose my entire thing because I won't be able to sell any of my bananas. They'll monopolize the market in such a way, they'll sell it at a lower price than what I can sell it at. And if I then say to them, I'm going to play with them, then I'm part of the game. And the whole country is losing out. Now where do you stand? What do you actually do? I went to, I've been traveling in and out of Bangladesh, right? I saw this, my sheikh's brother, he's got this small stall, right? And he's selling small things. He's talking about 5 taka, 10 taka things, right? So he's selling some powders and some, grounded masala and so on. So I said to him, why don't you take it to a bigger thing? Why don't you make a mill and, make it big? He said to me, listen, he goes, you want to do anything halal in this country? You do anything halal in this country, right? He said, you can't do it unless you stay as small as me. I said, what are you talking about? He then told me how he got a mill, he made 100% grounded, powdered spices and so on. And when he went to get it certified, the guy wouldn't give him a certification. Why? Because he didn't give him bakshish. Bakshish? Bakshish? Tip, bribe, whatever you want to call it. He didn't give it to him. I said, what do you want money for? I'm genuine. You can see it's genuine. Just stamp it off. And he said to him, get out of here. And he goes, in the same marketplace where there's people who are selling 50% mixed with other dodgy stuff. They're mixing the red, maybe it could be from bricks that they're grinding out from anything, right? They're grinding and they're selling it. They get the 100% certificate because they're giving him the bakshish. And he goes, you think it's, I go to him, why don't you complain? And he laughed at my face. He just laughed at me. He goes to me, he goes, Hasan, he goes, you know when you go past all these, in Bangladesh, right, a few years, I mean, it's been happening for a long time, but for a few years back, it's been really bad, that you get stopped at certain places, and the coppers stop you, and they start looking around your car, they ask for your license, and you better pull out 100 taka, you better pull out 200 taka, quick and fast, give it to him in his hand, and he'll let you go. I said, yeah, but I said, that's corruption. He said to me, you think that, he was laughing at me, saying, you don't understand what's going on. So I said, tell me what's going on. He said, do you think that copper who's a foot soldier on the ground, he's the only one that's taking it? He goes, he's not the only one. He's got his senior officer above him who's told him that he better do it. And he's cut. The senior officer told him he's cut. He wants this man's cut at the end of the day. And I said to him, well, why don't you go to the guy above him? He laughed at me. He said, don't you realize? He goes, don't you realize? He goes, the MP starts it off. The MP tells the headquarters in his demand, the police headquarters, my cut is this much, 20% from everything you lot get. I want this much by the end of the month. And then the headquarters starts with all their police force from, all the different departments, and they go down to the ground floor. The guy who's on the foot soldier, he's probably getting a small cut out of it. The rest of it is going right up to the MP. And the president, prime minister themselves, they know it's all going on. They know it's going on. And it's not just Bangladesh, this is Pakistan and all these other countries, the same thing is going. So you want to try and do something halal, you can't do it. Now who's the biggest problem? The biggest problem, my friend, is me and you, who's a decent, good, practicing Muslim. We don't want to kill people, but we're being accused of that. Why? Because, eventually what they want to get to, and I want you to understand this. When they called our Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when they called him a terrorist, and when they called him a this or that about him, it wasn't only an attack on him. It was attack on the message that he brought. And the message, it wasn't an attack on the message itself, the attack is on Allah. You've got to understand, this is not just Bangladesh, this is across the world. Their attack is the Quran itself. Because what they will eventually say is that the Quran, na'udhu billah, may Allah forbid, and may Allah save us from seeing that time, but it's coming. Guys, I'm telling you it's coming. Is their attack is, and not just Bangladesh, I'm talking about across the world, is to say that the Quran is the manual that teaches Muslims to be terrorists. Now we're not terrorists in the first place, but they will say that this Quran teaches it. And it's already happening where they're starting to, in blogs, and they test it now and again to see the reaction of people. And when they will say that, eventually they will say that Allah Himself, may Allah forbid and may Allah save us from seeing those days, they will say that Allah is the one who is teaching and who has taught the Muslims how to be terrorists. Na'udhu billahi min dhalik. They will get to that, and they're getting to that. See, in Bangladesh, one of the bloggers he said that even if Allah comes down, we'll hang him as well. And if you know, last week he said, even if Allah comes down, we'll hang him as well. Right, they've gone to that stage. Now who are these bloggers? These bloggers are atheists. These bloggers are people who've got no deen, no religion inside them, and they hate religious people simply because we do not like zina. We are against adultery. The Quran is against adultery. Allah is against adultery. The Messenger ﷺ was against adultery. These people want adultery. They want fornication. They want, fahsha. They want this pornography. They want, these satellite things to show them all this. And we don't want that. We want decency. We want decent people to grow in decent homes. You know how many people's lives are affected because of the pornography? We are against this, this system I said of going to countries, of bribing them, or going to countries and taking the market and monopolizing that. Islam says this is wrong. You should not deprive a people of its own riches. They want to do this. Who's stopping them? Who's the biggest crisis? Is these people who are good, decent, practicing Muslims. And if they continue saying what they're going to say, they won't be able to rob people. They won't be able to do what they're doing. And in the end, we're for the people. We're really for the people. We just want people to just get on with their lives and have honest, decent trading going on in the market. And these bubbles that were created in the banks, there's no way Islam is going to accept it. Islam is against riba. It's against usury. The whole countries, every single country of all these countries, Yeah, all the countries across the world that have a Bank of England, Bank of America, Bank of Bangladesh, Bank of Pakistan, you know what? All of them are running on riba. And we're saying that this is the wrong way to run the world. To run the world, the wrong way. It's wrong. It's robbing people. Innocent people have been robbed of their lives through these systems of usury and interest upon interest upon interest, where you repossess people's houses just because they were going out for a simple lending money. Just to lend a bit of money, you then eventually catch them and you take them away. You give them credit cards and you tell them, spend what you like. And when they spend too much, you then tell them that we're going to repossess what you've got. It's haram. It's something wrong. It's injustice on human beings. And that's what these innocent Muslims are saying. That's what the Quran says. Stay away from riba. So their problem is that they can't continue with riba and usury, and they can't continue with the games if the Quran continues, and if these good, decent Muslims continue. So the attack is where? The attack is, and that's not just Bangladesh. Across the world, the attack is the madaris, the madrasas, the ulama, the scholars, the preachers, the people who are giving sermons, the people who are telling to be good. They are the people who are the target. Why? Because they're the nucleus. They're the last standing people who are in the way of them doing whatever they want. This is a real score in the world. It's not just Bangladesh, guys. It's across the whole of the world. So what do? They give you music, they'll give you pornography, they'll give you freedom of your nafs and your ego, they'll give you girlfriends, they'll give you free life, they'll tell you that you can do what you want in your closet, they'll tell you you can go where you want, when you want, you can listen to who you want, when you want, but just don't forget, just don't make sure that you disobey the government, yeah? That's all, yeah? But you can disobey your parents, you can disobey who you want, as long as you make sure that you are still under the thing. So you cut your hairstyle to what you want. You cut your hairstyle to what you want, you dress how you like, you talk how you like, you watch what you want, and you've got all this freedom and all that. But the one thing is, don't stand in front of us. So when we tell you to dance, you dance. And when we tell you to wear certain things, you wear. I'm not saying that they're all corrupt like this, but there is a big influence across the world that has started. And the biggest thing that really gets to, you know what gets to their nerves? Is they've made this, and this is in conference, they've actually said this. They've said this in a conference in Riyadh, right? This is when I think Clinton visited Riyadh about, I think a decade ago. He said this, and this is one thing they can't understand, is that they've taken everything of this guy's life, right? Imagine this is one of the, I just want you to understand this. They've taken everything of this guy's life. They made him completely how they want him. They've ripped him off of everything that he has in his life. There's no religion left in his life, alright? So this guy's smoking, this guy's probably on drugs, he's got his music, girlfriends, whatever, clubbing, dancing, drinking, you know, everything you name it, his arrogance, the way he walks, you know, he thinks he's Mr. Macho Man, whatever he is, right? So he give him cars and fast cars and whatever. So he's everything, right? The minute they swear at his prophet, the guy wakes up. Because, hey, what did you say? You swore at my prophet. He can't even say his name properly. He says, you swore at my prophet Muhammad. Right? He can't even say his name properly. But he wakes up. And he starts to join the protests. And he goes crazy. And he starts to say, no way are you going to swear at my prophet. The same guy who's got no beard, who's got, you know, short back and sides, who's cutting his eyebrows, who's probably got studs, who's probably going, you know, who goes raving, craving. He's going to go raving, craving then after Jummah. He's going to do that on Saturday night still. He's going to still do that. But on Jummah, he comes out, and he wants to come out and he wants to protest and he wants to show that he is still got faith inside him and it's like burning inside him. And what they can't understand is how this guy, what is he inside him? What is it inside him that makes him wake up when they swear at the Prophet or when they swear at Allah, when they swear at the Quran? And they've come down to the whole factor that it's the only people that are standing, the only people that revive the Iman is all these sheikhs, shuyukhs, mullahs, madaris, right? That's why they became the target. So after 9/11, see 9/11 itself was a big propaganda. I'm going to spend about another sort of 5 to 10 minutes maximum. Inshallah by 9 that would have been done, okay? So that's maximum I'll spend time with you. 9/11 was a big propaganda, right? I don't care whatever you want to say, but there's one thing that's definite in the 9/11. One thing that is definite, which is that there is no way with the amount of intelligence services you've got in the world. So this was And apparently it's supposed to be some Arabs or some other people across the world who've been planning for weeks and months and came to America to hire a plane to get on there and to crash it into this to Twin Towers. And the thing is, if you are telling me, right, that their intelligence service never picked anything up, CIA, FBI, Mossad, and the MI6, and all the other intelligence service, no one picked it up, you are telling me the biggest Jackanory story in the world. There's no way the intelligence services couldn't have picked this up. They knew. My theory is this, that, I know a lot of people saying that it was an inside job. Okay, you can call it an inside job, fine, right? Either that, or the other thing is that they knew that this was going to happen and they allowed it to happen. They knew this was going to happen and they allowed it to happen so that tomorrow, the next day, they could say that we need to go into these countries and we need to do something about it and start this whole war on terror, right? Whatever the case is, there's no way you can tell me that all these people orchestrated this and the Americans were totally blind until the moment it happened. And all the other things that you've got, that nothing adds up, alright? Just like, the man going to the moon doesn't add up, how he gets to the moon and he's so slow on the moon, in his helmet, can't breathe, right, except through his oxygen, and puts a flag down, and then when he puts the flag down, the flag is waving like that. Have you seen that? Well, he should have just taken his helmet off and gone, thank God there's air on the moon. How does the flag just wave like that? And how do you have 3 shadows on the moon when you've got only one sun and all that? So the way that might, Allahu Alam, I don't believe that time they went to the moon. The same way the 9/11 whole thing, there's so many things that don't add up. But what I want to talk about is post 9/11, whatever has happened is this targeting of what? The target is not terror and it's not terrorists and whatever. The target is that you better become a liberal Muslim. That's what they want. So they want you to become a Muslim who's liberal, like someone like me, who's got a beard like this, is not very good. I have to have a short beard, trimmed one, if I have a nice trimmed beard and I suit on and boot on and I basically go to Jummah now and again and I'm like, yeah, Aki, I'm going to do something for the Muslims, But I'm never, I'm so liberalized and I'm not good for nothing. I'll miss my prayers now and again and I'll, whenever I want, I'll go on holidays where I take my suit off and I put a swimming suit on. I'll get into a beach and start diving with the women there. So as long as I'm one of those guys, then you know what? That's the Muslim that we want. It's serious. That's the Muslim we want. But the moment you become a good practicing Muslim and you want to seriously stick by the good morals of the Quran, you are a problem. You are a problem and the people who preach you are a problem. And that's where the real war is. So in Bangladesh right now, when the blind eye has been turned, like you've got these atheists who are blogging, there's no justice, nothing's been said about them. There's policemen who are killing people on the streets. No media, no one's reporting anything outside of Bangladesh, right? Inside Bangladesh, we're getting these reports of how many people, and I think the latest was, one of the newspapers inside Bangladesh said 145 people. Another source said 102, 107, whatever it was. So the thing is that over 100 people have been killed. These are innocent people without any guns, without any sword, without any knives or anything. They are completely innocent, come out to march, and they've been shot point blank in broad daylight, being shot. Nothing is being said. There's a big question mark. But what I want to say to you is that the government is being backed up by a lot of people behind them, and you've got an orchestration of many different governments backing one another up because there is a clear agenda. I'm not saying they're all part of one agenda. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that all governments across the world are in this, but I'm saying that there is many organizations, things behind that. What should we do now? Right? This is a crucial thing in the last few minutes of this. Number one is please make dua for your brothers, right? It's not just Bangladesh, it's across the world as well, for Palestine, for, Iraq, for Syria, what's going on in Syria at the moment, what's going on, many parts of the world, okay, wherever the Muslims are. May Allah Azza wa Jal make, a good outcome for the Muslims and for the innocent people across the world. But please make dua, that's one thing. Please help and support them in any way you can. And support, I'm going to tell you, support the nucleus of all of these, everything we do. It's not the mosques. The mosques, yeah? The mosques are not their target either. Because the mosque is just a place of worship. You don't do much here except you pray to Allah and that's it. The mosque is not the target. The target is the madrasa. Because the madrasa is the nucleus that teaches you what the Quran says and what the Sunnah says. That the madrasa teaches you what the deen is. And that's the real thing. So I'm going to ask you to support across the world, good madrasas. We're not talking about, we're not talking about people who've gone to an extreme. Please, don't get me wrong, yeah? People who are decent, good, right? I want you in your own ways to support all of these madrasas, to support the people of these madrasas, to support the organizations that are on the ground who are trying to do good for the people. Support them. And realize, wake up, that's one thing. But on top of that, what I want you to do is, we need people to go into these systems. We need people to go into the system. Today in Bangladesh, Maulana Ubaidul Haq, Maulana Ubaidul Haq, he's not alive, right? Rahimahullah, he's my teacher. He was the Imam of Baytul Mukarram Mosque, the government mosque in Bangladesh, in Dhaka, right? When he was standing as an Imam there, he's a true Imam, he's a legendary Imam. He only passed away about 6-7 years ago. But you know what? They tried to get rid of him. When he was on the mimbar, he's in this place, they tried to get rid of him because he was speaking the truth as it is. He was speaking. Government officials were right in front of him and he would tell him the truth of what the government is doing, right? And they didn't like him. They tried to get rid of him, they couldn't because the public went against them. They had to wait till he died. When he died, they elected a new Imam who was their puppet. Right? The new Imam who's the puppet, who would talk according to what the government wants, that they've got the new Imam in that position. And there was a Mufti Amin in Bangladesh, in Dhaka. He was a great individual again, who was trying to do a lot for the people of that country, and he was a politician as well. Again, he's passed away, rahimahullah. Last year he passed away. And these are the few individuals that were there who were standing. Now, currently, whoever they've got locked up and so on, they're the last few individuals, they've got them locked up, and they're now thinking of hanging some of them. What the situation is that if we don't get people who are genuinely good Muslims, who are going to get into politics, who are going to, and I'm not saying that the system is right, but seriously, if you don't find a way to do something, either you work outside the system and you try and establish something for the Muslims, or you work within the system and you're trying to do something for the Muslims. Don't be like these Muslims who say, this is all kufr, 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 don't even go near them, don't vote, don't attach, don't even put your finger in there, you become kafir, the minute you do it, you lose your iman. Don't go through that, because these guys, they're doing nothing for anyone. They're just sitting around and just talking about their dream empire that Allahu Alam when it's going to come. Now I'm not saying that don't work for the empire. If you want to work for it, fine, you work for it, but don't stop the people who are trying to work through the system to try and do something as well. We need people in every single angle to try and do something on a political level across the world. And we're not, look guys, the final thing I'm going to say is that we are not fighting for Bangladesh or like trying to stand up for Bangladesh. We're not standing or fighting for Pakistan. We're not fighting for, Syria. We want justice for the world. Not just for the Muslims as well. For the whole world. For the Jews, for the Christians, for all the people who are believers in Allah or not believers in Allah. And I'm going to give you a reference of this, and this will conclude the talk. Yeah? When Allah Azza wa Jal said He wants justice, He didn't say justice for the Muslims only. He said for humanity. And the ayah for that is Surah Hajj 22. Surah number 22, ayah number 40. You look at that, Allah Azza wa Jalla has mentioned about synagogues. He's mentioned the protection of synagogues, the protection of places of worship. You will find it there. So that's my thing, that we are fighting and standing for what? And again, it's not fighting as in physical fighting. We are standing up for what? We are standing up for the entire world, for the justice of humanity. May Allah Azza wa Jalla bring the best in this world. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah rabbil alameen.
الذكر علم ونور الحاملات سنا ونور والرسمات هنا سرور يا حلوات تلك السنين